Hi, my name is David Fleming from Disciples Ignited. We're studying faith in action, and we're looking specifically at Hebrews chapter 11. Today we're going to be looking at Hebrews chapter 11, verse 27. So let me start out by reading that to you from the NIV. The Word of God tells us, by faith, speaking of Moses, by faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. Now, we've already studied the first part of that verse in a previous video, but today we're going to be looking at the part where it says that Moses persevered because he saw him who is invisible. Now, just think, when the Lord led Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, the Israelites were over 1 million strong. I mean, it was like leading a whole city out of Egypt. And as they followed Moses, the first place that they hit up against was the Red Sea, which God miraculously enabled them to cross over on dry land. But where did the Lord lead them after that? Right into the desert. And the first test that they had was they ran out of water. Oh man, were they upset? Well, they were going from one test after another, and the Israelites really weren't doing too well. But Moses kept on leading them. But it got to the point that the Israelites got so upset at all the trials that they were going through and all the tests that they were going through that they even wanted to kill Moses. But the Bible tells us that by faith, Moses persevered. He did not let those trials, those obstacles, those tests deter him. He didn't give up. No, he persevered. But this is what the Bible tells us that his faith enabled him to do. His faith enabled him to persevere because he saw him who is invisible. Now, the Bible already tells us that God the Father cannot be seen by any man. The only one that sees him is Jesus the Son. So how did Moses see God, the invisible one? We're not given details, but this we know, that Moses' faith enabled him to have such an assurance of God's presence. How he saw him, I don't know. But he was so sure that God was present, that God was protecting him, that God was leading him, that he was able to persevere through all those difficulties that he was being led through, victoriously, for sure, but they were difficult nonetheless. And that tells us what is going to happen to us as we put our faith in Jesus. Let's face it, life is hard sometimes, but as we put our faith in Jesus, we're going to be able to persevere without giving up. We're going to be able to have such a sense of God's presence, his protection, his guidance, that we also will be able to persevere through difficulties. Remember, Moses' faith enabled him to persevere because he saw him who is invisible. And I promise you, if you by faith fix your spiritual eyes on Jesus, that doesn't mean that you see him physically, but it does mean that you have such a sense of his presence. You are so sensitive to his indwelling spirit that you too are able to see him who is invisible. How? By faith. And that is going to enable you to do exactly what Moses did. You'll be able to persevere through the most difficult times, all because your faith has enabled you to see Jesus, who is always faithful. But there's more to learn about faith and how it's going to affect our lives in such a positive way as we put our faith in Jesus. So join with me tomorrow and we'll learn more about faith in action as we study Hebrews chapter 11. So I'll see you tomorrow.